Welcome back, everyone. This is an absolutely stacked edition of the Warcraft news because lots of Blizzard infos came out. We've got cancelled Blizzard games, some dark histories being brought to light, just the story of things like how some of their games have collapsed. Also, we've got a glimpse into just how completely insane and often broken, as in literally invincible, the new player experience of World of Warcraft has been. And on top of that, we got updates with delves and even more class updates that have hit the PTR. And I'm going to knock those out first. So Circle of Life and Death has actually been removed from Balanced Druids on the PTR, just, shortly after they added it. So basically, they decided that no, they're not going to go back to the multi-dotting playstyle because they say that it's too frustrating in AoE. Right? That's why they're canning it. Which does make sense, but the thing is, loads of other classes experience that problem, and in almost all those cases, Blizzard had a solution, but apparently not one that fits balance. I'm not really sure what they're doing with balance, honestly. It's really in a bit of a state. Now, there are other things. So, Sub-Rogues, Flagellation is staying at 90 seconds, but Shadowblades is now coming down to match it also at 90 seconds, and we're really seeing across the game that just 90-second cooldowns are what we're all converging on. Over for Warriors, then, there's a few single-target Fury buffs to offset some talent imbalance, but as far as I can tell, the Warrior mains are still fairly mad about the nerfs that they've been getting to their hero talents. On the other hand, mages are seeing a nice buff to Frostfire, and while Fire Mage itself is taking an overall nerf, it is getting a pretty nice increase to its AoE damage, so that at least will make things feel a bit better. Big picture then, I would expect at most 1 or 2 more waves of class changes, and that's because we're all expecting this patch in roughly 3 weeks. But you can use to save money, be more secure, and access more content. I use them for just that, and at nordvpn.com/Bellular Warcraft, you'll get 4 months free on a 2-year plan backed by their 30-day money-back guarantee. Now, put simply, what a VPN does is it lets you browse the web as if you're anywhere in the world. And this can be, so strong it feels like a hack. Here's the best example for me. Airline and car rental pricing is often dynamic based on where you are. And that means you can clear your cookies, fire up Nord, change your region, and you'll often find far more competitive prices. And with that, you can easily save way more than the cost of your subscription. Now, I know that could all sound pretty techy and complex, but no, their app and their browser extension make it super simple. And if you want to say throw it on your router for network-wide security, you can do that too. And of course, this is all great for unlocking region-locked content, which is kind of everywhere. Nord stops your ISP from snooping, for prioritizing certain types of traffic you use over other types of traffic, and you get access to their fantastic threat protection services, along with new features like MeshNet, and you can even bundle in some of their other amazing tools, like NordPass to manage your passwords. And best of all, you get 4 months free with a 2-year plan at nordvpn.com/Bellular Warcraft. So big thanks to them for their years of support in the channel, and let's go. Okay, let's dig into all the things that have been unearthed about Blizzard. Now, this comes from the press preview tour for Jason Schreier's upcoming book, which is all about Blizzard's past, present, and future. Of course, expect a full breakdown from us, soon or at some point after the book comes out, but for now, there certainly are key things for us to talk about. First up, the games that we could have had. So, before unceremoniously departing Blizzard following the nightmare that was the Battle for Azeroth story, Alex Afrasiabi was apparently leading something codenamed Andromeda. Now, this was to be a modern God of War style action game where Thrall essentially would have been our Kratos, and it's a sad dad game. Makes complete sense for Thrall to sort of fill that Kratos role. As it stands, we know nothing else. Immediately it does sound like an amazing concept. The problem, though, is Alex as the lead. We saw what his influence did to Battle for Azeroth story, all that Sylvanas nonsense and BS. He was creative director of World of Warcraft through that period of time. And, then there's him being named in the DEFH case that kicked off pretty much all the Blizzard drama and actually got Blizzard into a position where Microsoft could gobble them up at a cheaper price. Now, that's just one game concept, though. There are other things we know, like the original version of Diablo 4 that was essentially Diablo but with the combat of the Arkham games and a third-person action game. There's the likes of the advertised but canned StarCraft Ghost, and we were quite well acquainted with the idea of a canned Warcraft Pokemon Go. But there were many more. Starablo was one, actually. It was done by Blizzard North before their crack at Diablo 3. Funny enough, it was a sci-fi Diablo. There's also Bloodlines, a space vampire game, which I suppose as a Stargate Atlantis fan I can kind of like. There's a Battlefield-like StarCraft shooter that essentially died at the altar of Overwatch 2 needing more devs. On Warcraft then, well, there's two things they did before World of Warcraft. One of them was a post-apocalyptic turn-based game called Nomad, and then there's Warcraft Adventures Lord of the Clans, which eventually was adapted into book form by Christie Golden, and pretty much establishes the core of Orcish lore. But the one that really fascinated me was Project Avalon. So this was a Minecraft-style Warcraft game that they were developing around the same time as Mists of Pandaria and Warlords of Draenor. In many ways that seems kind of goofy, a bit weird, but think about Blizzard. Their whole thing was basically to blatantly copy something that other people were doing, but implement it better. You know, do that Apple thing. Don't invent the technology, but tie it together in a user experience that can actually go the distance. Of course, it only lasted 2 years, and to my knowledge, there are no leaked development screenshots. Then finally, for Warcraft, at one point, they wanted to do a Helldivers 1 style game. So that essentially would have been a top-down co-op action thing. Of course, that also died. Now, there is a little bit of good news. They're actually working on a StarCraft shooter again. Dan Hay, who is the relatively recent Blizzard vice president, previously of Far Cry fame, is taking the lead in that one. And this is, of course, after the entire unannounced survival game completely collapsing. Third time's the charm, I guess. We also learned some other sad things, as an example, why Warcraft 4 never materialized. The short answer is, there was no universe in which it would make enough money. Team 1, the real-time strategy game specialist at Blizzard, the people who actually quite literally built Blizzard into what it was. Team 2 only exists because Team 1 couldn't make StarCraft 2 and World of Warcraft at the same time. The way things went down is that Team 1, the RTS specialists who literally built Blizzard, right, like the original team, the people who made all the IP, they went on to do StarCraft 2, and they were shown a hell of a lot less love after that project. The thing is, StarCraft 2 did well. It just did not do very, very, very well compared to, say, World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, and a bit later Overwatch, which were all printing money hand over fist. And that means that for Blizzard, RTS just was never worth the investment anymore. The team were actually so desperate to make any form of RTS that they even pitched Activision on a Call of Duty real-time strategy, but that was a non-starter. Then, of course, Reforged was the plan. It was going to be a bit more of a remaster initially. That gave way to, the slop that we ended up getting, and with Reforged failing, all hope for Warcraft 4 was well and truly gone, and some of that team skittered away to make Stormgate instead. There is, of course, a little bit of a silver lining for StarCraft, though, so the StarCraft RTSs are actually on Game Pass for PC right now, so that's certainly a good thing, and that there is a StarCraft shooter is kind of surprising to me. I honestly did not expect that. I just assumed they would treat it like a dead legacy franchise. The thing is, though, if they wanted to do another StarCraft RTS, well, it would have to be someone else at Microsoft, because right now, Blizzard sure as hell do not have the RTS developers left. Our next dive into the Blizzard situation is what happened all those years ago whenever we watched them crumble to dust after Cataclysm. Now, we already knew that they were working on Project Titan, and that Titan would eventually become Overwatch, but we didn't know just how bad that project was. Rob Pardo, vice president of game design at Blizzard, was stretched so thin that he essentially completely failed as producer and director of Project Titan. They spent $80 million over 7 years, and they made tons and tons of game, but never an actual game. As an example, Titan Town, which is what they called one part of it, had fishing, photography, gardening, and even hacking. Of course, on top of that, you also had superhero combat, you had dungeons, and the thing is that each individual bit was good, but they could not commit to an overall game loop, an overall vision. This is a project that was started to be Blizzard's own WoW killer, the next big thing. But with ambition like that, and I think insulated by the cash cow that was World of Warcraft, they instead faffed around for years, making, apparently, per one artist, enough art for 5 games. And that's even to the point where people would do art for a character, but actually find that their whole art management system was so antiquated and weird that actually somebody had already done art for that character 2 years ago. It really does feel like the archivists of the Imperium of Man in the 40k verse. Rough. The thing is, they did not have faith in a direction, they did not have a final vision for the product. They were too caught up in trying to be the World of Warcraft killer, and the fact that Overwatch came out of it is an absolute miracle and a testament to the good work that had been done within that very, very troubled project. Of course, it's a project that took away top talent from other Blizzard games. Of course, games like World of Warcraft, and often in situations where they didn't exactly have enough focus and enough of a succession plan to, well, not have those other games suffer, which they were probably fine with, because Titan was supposed to be the next big thing. Titan actually failed so hard that Bobby Kotick massively increased his influence at Blizzard, because basically it seemed the trust was broken. With that, you may think, great, I'm sure they learned a lesson there. No. They did not. The recently killed Project Odyssey suffered from many of the same problems. According to developers interviewed, this survival game that we all knew as the unannounced survival game was actually quite good, but it just wasn't enough for Blizzard. When people in the team suggest they release it in an early access state to basically take on the big survival games of the time, like Valheim, and to actually get players and build the game with them, the internal response was no. We're Blizzard. We make big, epic games that sell millions and millions of copies. It's that problem where there's an almost biblical level of pride in action there. The problem is that that's of course completely unfeasible. If they had have shipped something, they at least would have had a game come out. That game could have caught on, and maybe by listening to their players and understanding how their players played the game, they'd be able to find a vision for it and support a development team. But instead, Blizzard were so concerned about ensuring their games were perfect instead of good, actually fun, and something that people could play, that they just ended up canning almost everything. Just kind of tragic. If you want the full deep dives, head over to our news channel. With that said, let's get back to some World of Warcraft stuff. This is a real goofy situation. I'm sure you've heard of Hardcore Classic. Well, the opposite of that exists. It's called Softcore Dragonflight, and it's real. I did not know this. Did you know that for the last month, new players have been immortal while leveling? Yeah. I'm not joking. They've been immortal. Ian actually, said to Windows Central himself that he knows this is a problem. It actually turns out that while we've been doing our delves and everything in War Within, new players have been having a blast, but not in a good way. Right now, World of Warcraft pushes new accounts through the Dragonflight leveling experience. But that was a problem, because in their early testing with people, just newbies found it too hard. They didn't really understand what was going on, and for them, they'd be entering Dragonflight content with absolute newbie starting gear, not fresh off the back of, Shadowlands gear. Essentially, a lot of that flow was designed for veterans, for people who've played loads of World of Warcraft, and that meant it was too complex for brand new players in their testing. Of course, the problem was they were committed to Dragonflight being the baseline experience, so to fix this, but, not completely rebalance and rebuild Dragonflight stuff, they decided to fix it with buffs, right? Two of which basically made people permanently bloodlusted and completely immortal. Now, the immortality bit was actually a bug, but the whole bloodlust forever thing, well, that's actually intended. Now, the immortality thing's weird. What it was a cheat death-like effect, but the problem was it had no cooldown. So as soon as your health went down, it would save you with no cooldown, so you'd be immortal. That's obviously broken, but I suppose what's weird is that the rest are intentional, and it raises a crazy thought. Imagine playing World of Warcraft on God mode with a completely unexplained 40% haste like buff. I mean, just going around with Bloodlust all the time, and then having that vanish the second you hit level 70 and go into the new expansion, where you're already going to immediately be faced by having pretty low gear. I mean, that is a weird experience. Leveling already gets a bit slower and harder as you go, so it must feel like a brick wall to those players, just having the training wheels completely disappear. And I guess with that, no wonder that people end up struggling with delves in Mythic Plus when their first experience of the game, well, for a month involved them being immortal, and I suppose from now on, or at least now until they fix it, just involves them having a permanent 40% haste buff. What this highlights is just how bad, how weird World of Warcraft's new player experience is. Now, the good news is that in interviews, Holly Longdale, I think in an interview with me, forgotten the interview, but anyway, I'm pretty sure she said that this is something they're trying to properly work on, but obviously this short-term band-aid fix is what they had to ship with. It's absolutely not ideal. As it stands right now, though, the new player experience of WoW is just an incoherent and honestly kind of misleading and bizarre mess. It's genuinely insane how much of WoW just relies on word of mouth and player perseverance to grow. So hopefully whatever onboarding plans they're cooking up do come sooner rather than later. I cannot imagine the amount of players that WoW simply does not have because the new player experience is so weird. And if you really want to go on a trip, turn on Mentor Chat and see the sorts of problems players are having. It's, yeah, it's pretty crazy. Next, we've got a funny little story. The trading post. It's kicked up quite the debate, mostly because at the start of October, it was actually bugged, and also because the jellyfish is not very Halloween. You see, when I went live this week, it was weird. There was no reward for filling the bar. The reported reward, the Shadowlands jellyfish, was just on the post itself for 600 tendies. Now, this was fixed later on Wednesday, but one thing did stick. The mount was 600 tendies, but the actual Halloween-themed transmogrification set, the far more coveted thing that actually thematically fits the month of October, well, it's not the monthly reward, it's just 800 tenders. And I suppose the question asked then is, why is the big exciting thematic transmog thing not the monthly reward, considering it's the month of Halloween? Surely that's the thing that's the better call. So that confused people. The second part of the outcry then is that last year's mount, which is this broom, is on the store for $25. Yes, it is a $25 broom. That's pretty crazy, even compared to what some other WoW mounts have ended up costing in the store. A bit weird, and certainly complaints are rolling in that they're kind of relying on FOMO to sell this expensive, I mean pretty damn price-inflated item, right now, when, of course, a new wave of players for War Within were not able to get it on the trading post last year. But I suppose, in a way, I've always seen the trading post as that. A way to just sneak lots and lots and lots of things into World of Warcraft to later on, sell them. I suppose more than anything, it can feel a bit sloppy and just as if they do not have a clear vision for what this feature is supposed to be, especially fresh off the back of months and months of very underwhelming monthly rewards. That being said, next month is, it's going to be expensive. For a good reason, at least. That's because the class sets are coming back, but they're no longer going to be class locked. They will be armor type locked, so if you're in a warrior and you like the Death Knight version, well, you can pick that up and transmog it, so definitely remember to save your tendies. If you've ever wanted Thrall to lead you into battle, I've got mixed news. You can't do that, but what you can do is have him lead you to the local shop. And that's because Waze, just software that gives you directions and traffic reports, has partnered with Blizzard, officially, to add Thrall as a voice. And he won't just direct you physically, he will also direct you spiritually, offering you words of wisdom and strategy as you drive. But of course, he is an orc shaman, so he could just pop Bloodlust, and I don't really know what effect that has on the road. Alright, let's finish it off with Delves, which have actually got a bonus week. So, what you'll get is bonus Delver's Journey progress, bonus Undercoins, and Bran experience. So you get all of those, as well as 2 weekly quests. One, which is to do 3 delves at any tier. That'll unlock you a Pinnacle Cache, which is just one of the standard weekly boxes. And then, if you finish 2 more for a total of 5, you'll get a piece of 597 champion gear. Of course, if you want to focus on progress, it does make sense to do as many bountiful delves as you can tolerate this week. Of course, also remember that the likes of your Bran XP are account-wide, so if you've got a new alt and you maybe want to go, say, kill Zakfir or something like that, well, it will be handy if your Bran is super powerful. And it now turns out that with fresh changes, you can just go and spam Zakfir a few times and have a completely full vault of 616 gear in about 10 to 20 minutes. So if you want to learn all about that, check out this video next, which is our guide on the newly nerfed Zakfir and all you can get from him.